UFC lightweight champion Islam Makhachev should make his next title defense against Justin Gaethje, and Charles Oliveira, the former champion, should fight Mateusz Gamrot next. That's what I'm going to explain in this video, why I think this is the right move for the UFC's matchmakers. And Islam Makhachev, of course, coming off an impressive win over Alex Volkanovski last night, finishing Volkanovski in the very first round. I said it last night, I'll say it again. Islam Makhachev is the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the UFC right now. Short notice or not, this is a great win for him on his resume to finish Alex Volkanovski. It's the first stoppage loss for Volkanovski in his UFC career, and it's also the first stoppage loss he's had since 2013. So it's been a while since Volk has not, lost a fight via decision, and this was a big win for him. And the reason I would like to see Gaethje next as opposed to Charles Oliveira is because it's a fresh matchup. There's a bit of intrigue, right? And not to mention the fact that Justin Gaethje has a puncher's chance against Islam. He really does. There's few guys that have the type of knockout power and dynamic striking that Justin Gaethje has. That's what makes this so interesting. I think Gaethje, has really turned a corner. We'll go back to the fight against Rafael Fiziev. Going into that fight, a lot of people felt like Fiziev was going to beat Justin Gaethje, thought he was the better striker. Gaethje put on a clinic in that fight and got the win. That was a huge win for him. And then he goes and follows that up with a head kick knockout over Dustin Poirier. I mean, we haven't seen Poirier knocked out like that in a long time, finished like that in a while. That was an extremely impressive victory. And Poirier himself had a nice, bunch of wins going into that fight. I know he had the one loss to Oliveira in between there, but he had the 2 wins over McGregor. He had Dan Hooker. Those were all good wins. And for Gaethje to halt him in his tracks like that, very impressive in my opinion. And I just think the style matchup is just interesting here, right? Gaethje, originally starting from a wrestling background, doesn't use his wrestling a ton in his fights and has developed this amazing stand-up game. And, there's a bit of revenge here as well, right? Gaethje losing to Khabib Nurmagomedov, of course, a mentor to Islam Makhachev, his teammate, his former coach. I say former because Khabib, has made it very clear he's not being involved in MMA anymore. So there's that angle too. And like I said, I think the biggest selling point here is that it's a fresh matchup as opposed to Islam fighting Charles Oliveira again. We already know what happened in the first fight with Islam and Charles. I think Gaethje is a little bit more intriguing, and I think he deserves it as well with the 2 wins that he got over Fiziev and Poirier. And here's another thing that people don't talk enough about with Gaethje. Like, the Fiziev fight was a big risk. We've seen Poirier, as an example, not really fight any of these up-and-comers. Gaethje did. I mean, Fiziev was a dangerous fight with not a lot of name value, and he went out there and he beat him, and to me, you should be rewarded for that. So I would like to see Gaethje and Islam next. As far as a pick in that fight, I'm obviously going to go with Islam Makhachev. I don't think anyone at 155 beats Islam Makhachev right now. I think he's just on another level, but I do think Gaethje has that puncher's chance. And while I think Oliveira also has that as well, I think Gaethje's more known for finishing his opponents and having, in my opinion, sort of the harder punch, so to speak. I mean, we can debate that, but I do think Gaethje has more of a puncher's chance against Islam right now than Oliveira does. And again, it's a very fresh matchup. So that's what I would do next as far as the matchmaking here. Now, look, you guys know, if you followed me on this channel, I am a big fan of Charles Oliveira. I enjoy watching him fight. I should clarify that. I enjoy watching him fight. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm like his biggest fan, but I definitely, appreciate what Oliveira has done in his career. Again, talked about it many times. A lot of people wrote him off as a busted prospect. He went on this incredible run, won the title, and, lost a pretty one-sided fight to Islam the first time, and then rebounded with an impressive win over Beneil Dariush. So the reason I want Oliveira and Gamrot to fight each other is because I think because Oliveira got beat so badly in the first Islam fight, I don't think one fight should get him back in the saddle. Now, there's an argument to be made. He defended his lightweight title a lot of times. That should count for him getting this rematch with Islam. But I just think from a personal perspective, I think Charles needs to do a little bit more to get that rematch just with how one-sided the first fight was. And I think for Gamrot, I think Gamrot's the right opponent. Gamrot was tabbed as the backup for Islam and Alex Volkanovski, which originally was Islam and Charles Oliveira. The UFC obviously thinks very highly of him. He's only got 2 losses, but I mean, I said this before, he had kind of a weird route to getting this backup title shot, right? He had a really close fight with Jalen Turner that honestly I think could have gone either way. And then he had the fight with Fiziev, which, let's be honest, ended in an injury. He gets the win, but it's not like he injured Fiziev's knee. Fiziev was injured himself. So, he was looking good early in that fight, but that wasn't really like a quality win that should get you a title shot. I think this settles the debate here. If Oliveira can go out there and beat Gamrot, a guy that I think he should beat, then I think there's no reason to deny him a title shot because he would have had 2 quality wins at that point to get a title shot again. With Gamrot, I think this really puts a seal on his streak that he's on right now. I think this really a stamp on that streak that he has. If he beats a former champion in Oliveira, then he absolutely deserves a title shot as well. So to me, this keeps Oliveira and Gamrot active. It gets Gaethje his title shot, right? Gaethje won the BMF title, whatever you want to think of that. But I think this kind of solves a lot of problems here. And by the way, a pick for Gamrot and Oliveira in that fight, I'm going Charles Oliveira. I think he beats most fighters in the lightweight division right now. And I just think that I think he could potentially knock out Gamrot in that fight, or I think even if it hits the mat, I think that Oliveira's ground game is quite good as well too. He's going to have to tighten things up because Gamrot's a specialist, but I do see Oliveira coming out on top as far as a pick in that fight. So that's kind of what it boils down to for me, is that, you know, I just want to see Islam fight someone new, and I want to see him fight a lightweight. We've had these 2 fights now with Volkanovski, which were, you know, they were what they were. They were great. They were intriguing to the weight class, but you know, if Islam wants to go on the type of run that I think a lot of us want to see, he's got to be fighting lightweights and fighters that compete in that weight class. And I think Gaethje is the next man up. Not to mention, Gaethje's getting a little bit up there in age, right? 34 years old. He's going to be 35 next month. So, you know, I don't want Gaethje waiting around. I've heard some people suggest that Gaethje should fight someone else. I disagree with that. I mean, that win over Poirier, that should have secured his title shot. I mean, that was an incredible win there. You've also got another fight out there between Beneil Dariush and Arman Tsarukyan. As I'm the biggest supporter of Arman out there, but I think he needs to beat a guy like Dariush to get in that title conversation. So I think he's away. And obviously Dariush lost in the first round to Oliveira. He should not be in the title talks as well either. And by the way, it's just crazy that the UFC called Poirier to potentially fight Islam, you know, for last night's fight when he's coming off a knockout loss in July. It wasn't even that long ago, end of July too. So that's a little side note there. But yeah, I would like to see Islam and Gaethje fight. I think Islam gets a late submission or possibly a decision in this fight. I just think. I think as good as Gaethje's stand-up is, I think the margin of him trying to being able to knock out Islam is so small that I just don't see that happening. And I think Islam's wrestling will be too much his strength. I mean, you look how strong he was against Volkanovski last night. He looked great. So, yeah, I definitely see Islam winning that fight and doing so in an impressive fashion. And then after that, maybe we can talk about Islam, you know, fighting the winner of Dariush and Arman Tsarukyan, I think after that. I mean, looking at the rankings here, I hope I'm not missing anyone here, but as far as the rankings go, I think that kind of makes sense, right? Unless I'm missing someone. But no, as far as the title, and obviously you've got Chandler and McGregor if they fight, but I've said this before, even if McGregor beats Chandler, that shouldn't be enough for him to get a title shot. And conversely for Chandler, if he beats McGregor, he shouldn't get a title shot either, right? That's more of a money fight than a rankings fight, so to speak. So yeah, to me, it's Arman and Dariush sort of behind this Oliveira and Gamrot fight. And then, and yeah, so if Islam beats Gaethje, then and Charles beats Gamrot, then you do Islam and Charles at a later date. And I think that's a fight with, you know, the fan bases and the emotion and all that stuff that goes into it, which should get a proper build-up. I told you guys this before. I didn't want to see Islam and Charles fight so soon. It would have been about a year since their rematch. I think that was a bit too soon after how one-sided that first fight was. If you do this down the line now, like I said, if Oliveira fights Gamrot and he beats Gamrot and then Islam beats Gaethje, then that sets up a much better, more promotional friendly fight where you can really build this thing up. Because I did feel like it was a bit rushed doing Islam and Charles personally. So yeah, now you do it a little bit later. And hey, if Gamrot wins, then he's definitely earned his title shot. But I don't think I was alone in thinking that Gamrot's, you know, him earning that backup spot was not really justified with him, you know, having this weird fight with Fiziev. And again, it's not his fault that Fiziev got injured, but that also shouldn't mean that he gets a title shot off that. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you want to see Islam Makhachev fight next? What is your preference? And let me know what fight you want to see him have. And then who do you think wins that fight? Do you think Islam wins? And, you know, same thing with Charles, if it's not Islam next. I want to hear from you guys in the comments. Let me know. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.